Hi, y'all. Welcome. We're delighted to have you join us for our first ever virtual family weekend event on strategies for well-being and connection. My name is Ida Balderrama Trudell. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I'm with the Office of Inclusion Education and Student Affairs, and I'll be moderating today's panel. Thank you to those of you who submitted questions and ideas for our discussion today in advance. We used your suggestions to create an outline for our conversation today. If you have additional questions about well-being and connection or any topic after this panel, please feel free to email the Parent and Family Program at parent@uwmad.wisc.edu. I want to let you know that this presentation is being captioned. That link is listed in the description window under the video panel on the YouTube page. Today's panel is also being recorded for later viewing, and you can watch this discussion anytime at the same link. So now I want to introduce our panel, or I want to have our panelists introduce themselves. So we will kick it off with Caitlin.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Caitlin Lamonti. I use the pronouns she and her, and I serve as the Program Director for Social Justice Education in the Office of Inclusion Education here at UW-Madison.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Christina Olstead. My pronouns are she and her, and I serve as the Dean of Students here at UW-Madison. Thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sarah Nolan. I use the pronouns she, her, and hers, and I'm the Director of Mental Health Services here at UW-Madison. Good to see you all.
Laura, are you still with us? All right, so our other panelist who seems to be having a little technical difficulties is Warren Shear. So we'll see if we can get Warren back. Warren is the Assistant Dean and Director at the Gender and Sexuality Campus Center, and Warren's pronouns are per and pers. Thank you all so much for joining us for this panel.
Ida.
And yes. You're welcome, Warren. Thank you all so much for joining us for this panel and sharing your time and insights. I wanted to start by asking each of you to offer some insights and reflections on a question that gets to the heart of our discussion today. You'll each have about 5 minutes. So the question is this: what are we talking about when we say well-being and connection? And how does that fit into the work that you do? So let's start with Caitlin.
Absolutely. So when I was first approached about participating in this panel, I was really excited to be able to share some of the work that I do and the ways in which I engage with well-being and connection, and also a bit nervous and apprehensive. That really came from, for me, my own struggles right now during the ongoing pandemic, the ongoing fight for racial justice, in thinking about what practicing well-being and building relationships looks like for me as a person. So really wanted to make sure that I named those emotions and named kind of those feelings that bring me to this space for our discussion today. A lot of the work that I do is really centered around providing social justice education opportunities for our students. This might look like helping them to develop their sense of self around their identities, discussing ways in which they navigate different systems and institutions, and also thinking about how we can work together as a campus community to create change so that UW-Madison is truly a place for all of us and all of our students. When I really reflect on well-being and connection, for me, it is deeply tied to social justice. If we are going to be practicing well-being, if we're going to be talking about well-being, we also have to be addressing and thinking about how racism, classism, sexism, those barriers and systems impact our students, in particular, our students who hold marginalized identities. So for our students of color, our students who are in the LGBTQ+ community, really making sure that we are addressing some of those systems and barriers for them so that they too can engage in well-being, so that they can feel a part of this campus and build relationships and community. Well-being is also about self-care and collective care for me. That is often how I engage in well-being, whether that is educating students or for myself, practicing well-being. So wanting to make sure that I am not just focusing on well-being as, something I don't have to really intently think about, something I don't have to engage with, but instead it is how I build that community and build connection. So making sure that I am taking care of myself, I'm taking care of others, more than just asking, how are you? Really deeply rooting myself in intentional and proactive practices that allow me to build my resilience and my ability and our students' ability to thrive here at campus, and also connect with you all as parents and family. You are a part of their community, and so engaging in well-being with them and for them is really crucial to my sense of what well-being and connection means.
Thanks, Caitlin, for connecting social justice and well-being for us, as well as self and collective care. Christina, would you please share your thoughts about what well-being and connection is for the work that you do?
Sure, thank you. So I want to acknowledge that we are living amidst a very challenging time, from navigating a global pandemic, a national reckoning for racial justice, and an economic crisis, all in the midst of an election year. This is a lot. One of these items alone would be challenging. And then when you have all four occurring at the same time, it can be exhausting and overwhelming. Well-being and connection is crucial to help us weather the storms that we find ourselves within. As individuals, we all need connection and community, and finding it at this time takes a bit of intentional focus. The concept of pods, a small group who agree to abide by all health protocols outside of their pod to protect the health and safety of their pod, is one method that has seen some success. Students form small groups between 4 and 10 people, and they commit to protecting the safety of the pod, and only within their pod are they able to relax their public health protocols. This is a strategy for students living in off-campus apartments and houses that they can use. Another important component is to focus on mindfulness and meditation. The Center for Healthy Minds, located on campus and founded by Richard Davidson, offers a free application focused on developing mindfulness practices to build resilience. I highly recommend this free tool, as I have utilized it myself in staying centered when so much around you is outside of your control. Many of our students are involved in one of the 1,000 student clubs and organizations on campus, and you can find more information on the Wisconsin Involvement Network. Students also have the opportunity to be engaged in the Associated Students of Madison through the many committees open to the public for advocating and improving the student experience on campus. For more information on ASM, check out asm.wisc.edu. The Center for the First Year Experience is committed to supporting students within their transition to campus, from student orientation, advising, and registration, transfer transitions advising, and programs to support our transfer students in their transition. Find CFYE at newstudent.wisc.edu. If you're not sure where to start and you're struggling to get connected or with your well-being, please feel free to reach out to the Dean of Students office. The Dean of Students office is here to reduce barriers and promote retention through connecting students with appropriate resources and support. We are committed to your success. Find us at doso.students.wisc.edu to connect virtually, or head to Bascom Hall to connect with us in person Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. We are here for you. And when I think about my own personal well-being and finding those connections at this time, it's different for each person. And so what works for me in grounding and connection and support and finding virtual connections and also in-person connections looks different for each and every one of us. So it's important to really focus on your mind and your body and the food you put into your body as well at this really challenging time, and focus on the things that you can control. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christina. And thanks for the reminders about mindfulness and involvement, and how this journey is personal for each and every one of us. Sarah, could you please share some thoughts from the perspective of University Health Services and mental health services specifically?
Yeah, thank you, Ida, and thank you, Caitlin and Christina, for your thoughts about this topic. So well-being and connection are at the heart of what we do at Mental Health Services. Mental Health Services is housed within the University Health Services on campus, and we are the university's counseling center. So what we do is we offer counseling, individual counseling, couples counseling, group counseling, and then a number of other workshops and programs to students across campus. The mission of us and of our center is to serve students and to promote the well-being of students. And we are constantly evolving in our services, certainly during the pandemic, to continue to work towards that mission of promoting the well-being of our students. Some of the ways that we're doing that right now include moving all of our traditional services to an online space. So all students can continue to get our traditional services virtually. So we offer individual counseling virtually, which is done over Zoom. We also offer groups virtually, which can be really helpful for a variety of students. So I would really encourage folks to talk with your students about whether or not they've heard of our services, and if they have heard but they haven't thought about reaching out, to consider reaching out. The first point of connection is called an access appointment, and students can make that appointment online just by going to our website or by calling our number and scheduling an appointment. And that first appointment is about 20 to 30 minutes, and it's a great opportunity for anybody who has been to counseling before or who hasn't been to counseling before to explore a little bit about what some of the options here are. We have one of the largest, most robust counseling centers in the country, and so it's a really great opportunity for students to experience at no additional cost to them what a lot of the benefits of counseling are. We are also very connected to our partners across campus and collaborate on a lot of events and workshops and programs. So I would encourage your students to take a look at our website, follow us on social media, and you can see some of the great things that we're doing to promote well-being among our students. I want to talk just briefly about the importance of connection. I think as both Caitlin and Christina pointed out, we're living in a time of decreased connection, and that's really challenging for mental health and well-being overall. So finding ways to increase that connection to both ourselves internally, but also to other people is really important. Group therapy is one thing that none of us really knew how it would work virtually, but it has really done very well. And so we have a number of groups, and I would go to bat to say that we have the largest groups program in the country. It's very impressive, and it serves a lot of different students. And so our groups range from being based on different personal identities to being spaces to talk about social anxiety, to talk about difficulties with academic experiences. So there's really truly a group for everyone on campus. And if there's not a group for everyone, then we just need to hear about it, and there will be a group for everyone. So if you go to our website and look at our groups programs, you can see a little bit more about that. We also have two really excellent resources online. One is called Silver Cloud, and the other one is called You at Whisk. And these are great for students, especially if you have a student who is feeling like they could use a little bit of help, but not necessarily feeling like they want to try counseling at this point. Or if you have a student who may be a little bit more introverted and wants to see if they can try some strategies on their own before they expose themselves to put themselves out there with another person. So both of these resources allow students to go in, personalize their experience around some of the issues, the anxieties, the feelings of sadness or disappointment that they're having, and take them on a path, on a journey online to assist them with resources to help improve their well-being right now. I also want to say that we do offer consultation to parents and families. So if you are feeling concerned about the well-being of your student, please feel free to reach out to our office. We have staff available whenever our doors are open, which is 8:30 to 5. And so you can also find our email addresses on our website. But truly, if you're worried about a student, it's always better to reach out and ask for help. I say that our office can serve just as the other offices that are represented on this panel can serve as good quarterbacks for student well-being. So if you're concerned about a student, give us a call and we will help you figure out your next steps with your student. We also have, so our phone is answered by us during our business hours, but our phone line is always answered by a mental health professional. So 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, if students are in crisis or need mental health support, they can always call our phone line and they will get routed to a mental health professional. So please know that you and your students are not alone on this journey, and well-being is something that we are always looking to support and promote. And we are here for all of you, just as my colleagues on this panel are. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for sharing a lot of the options that students have for their overall health as well as their mental health, particularly those connections to the groups that we have, and ways to access assistance both for students, families, and the support systems that they have. So Warren, to round us out, first, could you introduce yourself to us? I want to give you the opportunity to do that since your video was acting up. And then could you add some further insight and tips about well-being and connection?
I'd be delighted. Thank you, Ida. So everyone, happy to be here with you this afternoon. Warren Shear. I'm the Assistant Dean of Students and Director for the Gender and Sexuality Campus Center, and I use the pronouns per and pers. So one of the things that I think about when I think about well-being is identity and interest. So in the Campus Center, we facilitate and create space for students to explore their identities. And that is a route to navigating and finding well-being, finding your place in the world. It's also a vehicle for folks to find connection. So I see the things as inherently linked, as interwoven, right? They provide complexity and texture to each other, well-being and connection. So the Campus Center is committed to and invested in helping students find community and build that community, whether it's connecting them to discussion groups or student organizations, if it is getting them connected to hearing speakers who share similar or comparable identities, who are at different spaces or different places in their identity development. We seek to offer that. On a personal note, I think about a sense of belonging is at the core of connection, right? And you want to belong and feel like you belong in your body. You want to feel like you belong in the space or the communities that you in which you reside, right? Your neighborhood, so on and so forth. So students are inherently seeking, and people inherently seek a sense of belonging, right? And that is facilitated by connection, whether connection to a community, whether virtual or in person. That is important. And it's one of the priorities for the Campus Center to cultivate and ensure a sense of belonging on campus on a micro level and on a much larger level. So micro level in your residence hall, in a small group, on a macro level on campus and in the city of Madison. On another note, I often think about well-being in 4 ways that my colleagues before me have touched on about, and frame it often in a reservoir or your reserves, if you will, a battery that you can draw upon. So there's an emotional battery, a mental battery, a spiritual battery, and a physical battery, right? Like, how are we cultivating experiences for students to and ourselves, for that matter? How are we cultivating experiences or opportunities to recharge, right? The spaces that we are in and the times that we're in can be quite taxing at times. So how are we creating opportunities for us to recharge and restore ourselves? I know for me, and one of the things I encourage students to do is explore, are you an introvert or an extrovert, right? So much of my life is as an extrovert, and the way that I recharge is an introvert. Give me a book, sit on the couch by myself, and don't talk to me for an hour. I'm going to be recharged and set after that. It's cultivating and experimenting, finding ways that work for us individually to recharge, and then also outside of self-work, contributing to community if we can, if we have it in us to offer space and cultivate for others that to recharge and support themselves and cultivate that sense of connection, then we do that as well. It's one of the things that we actively do through the Campus Center to connect students to each other, but also to get them connected to themselves in a variety of ways. Thanks, Ida.
Hi, thanks, Warren. I am so grateful that you tied it all together with sense of belonging, because I think that that is one of the things we focus on, in particular in student affairs and in lots of places around campus. So, really wanting to have students engage in that. And then also the idea of recharging, right? I think that we're all trying to figure out ways to do that. And so it's one of the reasons I'm really excited that we're offering this, this session today. And not to sound a little too High School Musical, ish. I know people have seen all the memes and stuff, but like we're literally all in this together, right? So the things that we are sharing today are also things that you have heard from the panelists that they are also trying to do with themselves and their staff. So it is something that we really are focusing on as a community. Thank you all for your wisdom and for your area of expertise, and for letting us know what's going on. Warren, you did a really good job of laying some breadcrumbs to the first question that I'm actually going to kick over to Christina, and that is, what strategies can students use to develop a sense of well-being and belonging in a mostly virtual environment? Oh, you're muted. All right, so Christina, I'm gonna ask that question one more time because it looks like you were muted. So what we wanted to share with you all now are some strategies that students can use to develop a sense of belonging and well-being in a mostly virtual environment. And Warren did a really good job of laying those breadcrumbs for us. So what additional things could you add?
Great, thank you so much. Sorry about the technical issues. So first off, just remember, this is tough. There aren't always easy answers, and this isn't a typical semester. It's okay to be frustrated, sad, disappointed, or unsure. We've all had these feelings during the pandemic. It's okay to recognize our feelings and experiences. Remember that the difficult sacrifices we make and our students make are for the greater good and for public health. It helps us focus on being of service to others, which helps boost our mood. One of the pieces, and this is actually a framework from the Center for Healthy Minds, it's really looking at a 5-3-1 practice. So 5 minutes of meditation, 3 things you're grateful for, and 1 random act of kindness each day to help center ourselves and help boost our mood. Be open to doing things a little differently. We want to provide our students with safe ways to find community. And some examples of those include student organizations. The Wisconsin Involvement Network gives you ways to get involved, either virtually or in person, with student clubs and orgs on campus, which we have over 1,000. Recreation and well-being. Our facilities are open, and we also have virtual courses available. Our Wisconsin Union has the Terrace open. It's the largest outdoor restaurant in Madison, and the views are spectacular. I love spending time at the Terrace, and it makes me appreciate the beauty of our campus community. And then opportunities for connection and community within the Red Gym, which has gone through a large renovation project within the last 9 months. So Warren works in the Red Gym and can share more. With that said, we know students' needs are unique. If your student doesn't know where to start, have them contact the Dean of Students office. We have a staff member on call each day who can speak with your student and guide them through resources, share advice, and provide a listening ear. Our goal is to provide support so that students have the tools they need to thrive. Students can also make a same-day drop-in appointment on our website. And I apologize for the distractions in the background. Thank you.
No worries, Christina. We're all working in places that are not our offices or the places that we used to. So personally, I like hearing little kid voices around because it reminds me that we're all kind of alive, and you never know what's coming. So Warren, I'd love to hear some thoughts. Christina did talk a little bit about the renovations in the Red Gym, which we'd love to also talk about since your office is open. But maybe some of the platforms and other ways that students can engage so that they can really feel connected to other folks.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Ida. Absolutely. So as Christina and Ida mentioned, the Red Gym has undergone some renovation, and there are several new spaces that students can access. Part of that, and I say access, in that students can reserve study space in the campus center, in the Latinx Cultural Center, and the APITA, or Asian Pacific Islander Desi American Student Center, and the Multicultural Student Center overall in the Red Gym. Study space is reservable. So that's a route to be near folks and potentially engage in some study sessions if you are seeking spaces. And more specifically to Ida's question about virtual platforms, there are a number of offices that are offering via their student staff's ingenuity and creativity, are offering panel sessions and small group discussions, right? That are student facilitated. So then it's for students by students to engage in conversation about their experience, about any particular need that they'd like addressed, so on and so forth. I think about the number of discussion groups and or panels that we offer out of the campus center. And I know that several of my colleagues in the Red Gym also offer. And one final note about a virtual platform. Some of you may be familiar with Discord as a server or a tool for folks to jump into and be in community. So for reference or context, the Campus Center has launched a Discord server. We have approximately 100 people engaged on a regular basis. It's available 24/7. So when a student is active or has downtime, takes a break from studying and has some time between class and wants to jump in and connect with other people, dip into a chat about pets and plants, share one of the most exciting memes that they've seen recently, so on and so forth, there's an opportunity to engage. And the beauty of the Discord server is that it's available 24/7 and people can thread and follow up continuously. A great way to get connected and build belonging, even if we can't be together and gathering in person. Thanks for the question, Ida.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for that, Warren. I was noticing the artwork behind you. I believe that's Storm. Is that Storm? Did I get it right?
Yeah,
Yep, Storm. And the reason it
Yes.
popped up for me, one, I'm a nerd, and so I like comics and things like that. But I know that there are also lots of things like offered through the Wisconsin Union, through Wheelhouse, like art, and so, they're letting students come and pick up packets of things, and lots of offices and departments are offering things like that as well too. Since we can't attend those events in person, and so if people are more tactile, want something to do that goes to their creative side, there are definitely things like that. So your artwork just reminded me that we have lots of possibilities related to that. So folks should just kind of tune in to when those things might be happening. I'd like to move on to our next question, and it's about helping students foster that well-being within their communities and within ourselves. So I'd like to have Sarah, and so I know, we chatted about it a little bit in our intros, but if we could delve a little deeper into more specific practices that could really help us foster that well-being within our communities and how that can serve us. Sarah, I'm going to kick it to you first, and then Caitlin will chime in after that.
Great, thank you. So, I think it's important to look for some silver lining in the current world that we're living in. And one of the things I think about is that we're sort of forced into, well, not sort of, we're forced into less social connection than some of us previously preferred to have. I think some people are probably fine with it, but many of us are spending a lot more time alone than we would like to. And as a society, I don't want to go too far adrift from what we're talking about, but as a society, we have gotten used to always being plugged in, always being connected to something, someone, having lots of ways to distract ourselves. And distraction can be a really healthy coping strategy when it's used deliberately as a coping strategy. But oftentimes, particularly with generation of students who are in college right now, it's not necessarily an intentional coping strategy, but rather a way of being. So one thing that we can do during this time is connect to ourselves in a more intentional way, which will lead to improved well-being and also better connections with other people. And I think a really important part of learning how to connect with ourselves is doing some personal work around what are our needs and how do we get our needs met. And not sort of Googling, what are my needs? Or talking to friends about what are your needs? What are my needs? But really looking within oneself, which is challenging and has to be deliberate. And that is going to look different for everyone, which I think is really important for us to keep in mind as we work with students and, people in our lives. So allowing, having an open mind and allowing folks to think about how they want to connect with themselves. For some people, it's journaling. And even within the world of people for whom it's journaling, for some people, it's guided journaling. I have a number of prompts that I share with students to help them do some self-reflection, because it's hard sometimes for some people to sit down with an open journal and know where to begin. For some people, it's taking walks, having some time and space to think about things. For some people, it's mindfulness and meditation. And there are a lot of really great resources out there for people to begin to learn or to adopt a mindfulness practice right now. So really, and for other people, it's music. Some people really can connect to themselves through music. For some people, it's reading. So really allowing folks to, and asking folks to sit down and think about, how do you connect to yourself? What do you feel like you know about yourself? What do you feel like you like about yourself? Where do you want yourself to be in 6 months? What do you want to be different in 6 months? What do you want to be the same? Where do you want to keep growing in these ways that you like about yourself? So spending some deliberate time to really get to know ourselves, and then from there is how we discover, what do I need? I think it's really important for us to get creative in helping folks connect to each other. I shared earlier the mental health services resources, and I do want to make sure that folks have that number, which is 608-265-5600, and that's how you can reach us. So certainly I believe that, part of some folks' journey for discovering how they get their needs met is through, and connecting with people is through counseling and therapy. But for other people, I think it's, connecting with your community, like Warren was talking about. And for other people, it's, connecting with your family or connecting with people in all different ways. So I want to encourage folks to connect with with other folks, but also to connect inwards. So yeah, I think I'll stop there and hand it over. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Caitlin, as Sarah was talking, I was thinking about some threads that, you and I have actually talked about a little bit that I want to have you connect with, because I know we've been talking about it. So I know you do some of the things Sarah was talking about, but in this time where we're constantly connected, to folks virtually, whether that's, having meetings or classes or, things like that with our phones and our computers and everything else, how can students help themselves draw some boundaries? I know you and I have conversations about this, and I really appreciate your insights in it.
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely agree with everything that Sarah was sharing. I think one of the most important practices regarding well-being is having those discussions about well-being, removing some of that stigma around needing to ask for help or needing to focus on ourselves. Again, self-care is not selfish. It's really investing in ourselves and our communities, in thinking about, what do I need for my physical health and well-being, my mental and emotional health and well-being, my social, mental health and well-being. For me, especially in terms of thinking about my energy and how I can focus on myself and my community, is setting those boundaries. So definitely trying to encourage students and ourselves as well in this practice of, what do we need to say no to possibly? What do we need to maybe move back from or focus on in a different way so that we can do that intentional community building? So I like to start my day setting some intentions for how I want to show up and how I want to check in and connect with my community. That might be me sending a good morning text to folks. That might be me scheduling time to do lunch over Zoom with someone. It also might be me saying no to an opportunity so that I can go and read, or so that I can practice mindfulness and do some meditation. Really making sure that we are setting and working on our boundaries during a time, again, with the pandemic and ongoing fight for racial justice, so that we are not just always feeling overwhelmed and always trying to get more and more done, boundaries can help us to really have the time, carve out that intentional time to focus on our well-being and what our communities and we
Thank you so much, Caitlin. I really appreciate that. And, in that spirit of asking for help, I just wanted to repeat the phone number for University Health Services again. It's 608-265-5600. You can find it on the screen there, or, if you go to uhs.wis.edu, all of their contact information is also there as well. So thank you all so much for sharing those practices and strategies, both for students and for yourself personally. I think it's really helpful. The next question I'd like us to move into is really specific to parents, families, and support systems for students. So because so many students are, here or potentially in Madison and support systems might not be here with them, how can parents, families, and support systems really help their students from a distance? Or if their student happens to be, living at home or, with you or with that person right now. So I think I'd like to check in with Christina first.
Great. Thank you so much. What a very timely question. One of the most helpful things that you can do is to direct your student back to resources on campus. There are so many folks on the UW-Madison campus that are here to help, from advisors to the Dean of Students Office staff to librarians and student affairs professionals. Let your student know that it is important for them to seek out and ask for assistance. That's why we're here. Encourage your student to develop healthy habits, whether that's spending time outside, exercising, or eating well. Sometimes we forget to take care of ourselves when things get hectic, but that's when we really need to nurture ourselves the most. Encourage your student to prioritize activities that give them energy as much as they prioritize studying for an exam or attending a virtual student org meeting. And something really crucial, in addition to spending some time outside, exercising, and eating well, is making sure your student is getting enough sleep. That is incredibly important. We just navigated, we're in the midst of midterms right now. And, sometimes students are not getting as much sleep as they need and that their body needs. And that actually can, make them more susceptible to different colds and flus, because we're entering cold and flu season too. So make sure you encourage them to do that as well. If your student's at home, help them find a quiet place to study. Encourage them to take breaks to prevent screen fatigue. We all are experiencing screen fatigue in a variety of different ways. And so make sure they're taking breaks, make sure they're hydrating, and then also ask them what they're finding helpful at this time. This is a great time to develop a mindfulness practice. Like I mentioned, I'm going to be continuing to include that. And UW Center for Healthy Minds has a great suggestion for you to easily incorporate mindfulness into your daily lives. They also have a free application that's available through the application store to help you develop a mindful program that works for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christina. Warren, would you like to add some pieces?
Yes, thank you, Ida. I co-sign, absolutely agree with what Christina said and appreciate it. I also want to boost or amplify what Caitlin said about negotiating boundaries. I think that's really important, especially if the student has returned home. It, is necessary. I grew up in a very hectic house and needing to this is the time that I need to focus on class, if there are no distractions, so on and so forth, and setting boundaries about time. I also think about encouraging a student to set schedule. So time to study, time to be in class, and time to be away from a computer, right? We talked about screen fatigue. I think about one of the practices that we utilize in the campus center is ask before you ask. So if we have an ask or a need from the student who may be stressed about learning in a way that is not via the screen, not the way that is ideal or best for them, may I ask you to do something, right? That like, do you have the capacity to do one more thing right now? And being open to the student saying no. For example, may I ask you about your day? May I ask you about what you learned in class today, right? And I think that the invitation to teach back can be a way to also cement what the student has learned, but asking before requiring them to share is one thing. I appreciate Christina mentioning encouraging help-seeking behaviors, or because many of our students may want to like, I can do it on my own, and the support is there. No one's saying you cannot do it on your own, and we can help. I also, one of the practices that we readily utilize in the campus center is to ask folks in the last couple of days or in the past week or today, what made you laugh? What brought you joy? What made you smile, right? And in hearing folks out about that and drinking that in and sitting in that moment in that spotlight, as well as listening when the student wants to share frustration and not immediately moving to problem solving or offering advice. I often think about so I'll frame students, which Warren do you want me to be today? Do you want to be listening Warren? Do you want me to be upset with the world with you? Do you want advice? So on and so forth, right? So giving folks options to indicate what they're genuinely looking for. So they have to reflect and know their need and then communicate it, and I can meet that need. And I think it's a strategy that's worked well for me over the course of my career. Thanks, Ida.
Thank you all so much. I find myself over here being like, oh, I need to take notes on this. Like, this is good for everybody, right? Like, not just our students. I also just wanted to add something to this particular piece as well, too, when we're thinking about what we can do for our students. And, I think people have probably heard folks talking about grief during this time. And oftentimes people associate that with the loss of a person, but really the loss of an experience, right? Particularly if your student is a first-year student or maybe even a graduating senior, that there is a sense of loss, that this isn't exactly the experience they thought they were going to have, and that can be okay if you engage in the skills that folks are really bringing up, right? Talking to folks about boundaries, asking them what they need, and knowing that it's a process, and be gentle with yourselves as support systems, and really, be gentle with your students. So I just wanted to add a little bit of that in there, and it really rolls then into our next question, which I'm going to direct towards Caitlin, which is really about relationships, right? And so relationships are definitely key and central to our well-being. So Caitlin, could you speak to two things? One, how do we really continue to foster relationships at this time, given all the things, right? So many things. Christina mentioned a bunch of them earlier that are going on for us right now. And then the second part of that is how might we manage and navigate conflict, especially with roommates and people that our students are living with?
Yeah. So for that first question, the pandemic has changed a lot and will realistically continue to change a lot of our experiences, especially around building relationships. I believe it is okay and important, really critical for us to acknowledge that and think about the ways in which we can adapt and create new experiences for us to build those relationships. So when I reflect back on the first time I went to a virtual hangout, it was a bit awkward over Zoom, and I wasn't really sure if it was providing me with the well-being and the outlet that I needed. And that is okay. For me, I would suggest that folks continue to think about their expectations and their mindset in regards to relationship building. So what are you hoping to get from the experience? What are you looking for? What do you need? What do you realistically have the capacity to engage in? Once we think about our expectations and shifting those, we can be realistic with ourselves. So are students looking for someone to study with because they're in a difficult class? Are they needing someone to possibly connect with in their residence hall? Are they looking to engage in possibly with a hobby or a sport or a practice that they typically find a lot of joy in? So really thinking about what they're hoping to get from the experience and using that to then fuel their ability to build those relationships. I would also say it's really important to make relationship building an intentional part of their daily practice. So making sure that every day they are reaching out, engaging with someone. That might be, again, 5 minutes in the morning, sending a "how are you doing?" a good morning text to their family or community members. It could be them making a commitment that when they are at lunch, they will try to sit socially distant and safe from someone, but engage in some sort of conversation. It could be reaching out via chat in one of their classes or a discussion board to try to talk to someone. But that relationship building, like any skill, is going to take practice. And the more times that we are intentional and that we are engaging with trying to build relationships during the pandemic, it will become easier. We will find new ways to do that work and to engage. I would say also with that second part of the question that conflict is going to happen. For me, conflict is not necessarily a bad thing. It is something that happens when we have many different folks in a space together. So I try to make sure my mindset when I approach conflict is that I now have the opportunity to grow my understanding of myself and the person I am having that conflict with. I would advise students and everyone who is connected to a student to really encourage them to think about their role in the conflict, to process through their feelings, and also know that they are not alone in needing to address the conflict. So if a student happens to live in a residence hall, house fellows, residence life coordinators are all trained staff who can provide resources and assistance in de-escalating situations, as well as having that initial dialogue after a conflict has occurred so that students can hopefully find a solution and move forward. For folks who are living at home, I would advise for them to reach out to folks such as the Dean of Students Office or the Office of Conduct and Community Standards. Again, many resources on our campus in how to approach a conversation and how to shift conflict from, again, something that we see as really negative and bad, and instead of being a way that we can grow understanding and hopefully work together more. That conflict piece will be really important, acknowledging the fact that students are spending more time at home, in their residence halls, in spaces with others. So wanting to make sure that we normalize addressing conflict and make it a part of the work that we do in order to achieve well-being, connection, and build relationships.
Thank you so much, Caitlin. Sarah, I'm going to move to you for this next question. So how can we help support our students with their mental health as we begin to prepare for next semester with colder weather up here in Wisconsin and really the uncertainty of how long the pandemic will actually last?
Yeah, great question. And I mean, truly, how can we prepare ourselves with the uncertainty? I think the uncertainty is one of the biggest concerns because it's so new. Winter in Wisconsin and other places has always been hard. And of course, there are additional challenges this year as we have to socially isolate more than we have. But certainly the uncertainty is one of the things that I think is most concerning. Anxiety and depression have led the way for this population in terms of the top mental health concerns that folks face. And Ida made a really good point about the fact that grief and loss and things that lead to depressive symptoms are happening in full force right now in ways that are a little bit unique and sometimes can be invalidated. Similarly, there is a lot to be anxious about right now. So we've got these two major mental health concerns that have sort of been on the table for a long time for college students and been at the front of the pack. And now we're living in a situation where that is enhanced. So we really want to be holding two truths. One is that this is a time that is cause for serious anxiety and depression, and we want to make sure that we're catching folks before it gets too far and intervening and treating the folks who need it and offering support to all of our students around those concerns. And the other part of it is that those of us who have been on this earth a little bit longer than our students have seen some challenges different than this one, but more challenges than some of our students. And so there is an opportunity here for resilience growing and a little bit of tolerance for distress. And so we want to create space for students to go through these experiences of feeling scared, worried, nervous, uncertain. And we need to, as families, as staff and faculty, we need to be able to be patient with that and understand that it's coming from a very distressing experience and that a lot of feelings and emotions are coming up. And so we need to find ways to help students channel all of those feelings in healthy ways. So giving them the space to feel things and express things, and being able to tolerate that. And then also sort of being on the lookout for when it gets concerning and when we need to really offer additional supports. So I would recommend to all families that as your students are coming home for the holidays, and as they are reaching out to you, and as we move forward in this pandemic, to really be checking in and not be afraid of how they're feeling. So ask them, how are you feeling? How are you feeling about the fact that you're missing out on some of these events that you thought you were going to have? How are you feeling about the fact that it looks like probably you'll be doing virtual learning ongoing for a little bit here? Really ask them. And that will go a long way towards creating a space where they can express themselves. Letting them express themselves is really important. I would say to really be on the lookout for major changes in behavior. So if your students typically talk to you a lot and they're shutting down, that's something we start to get concerned about. If your student starts to withdraw from their friends or withdraw from folks that they are typically engaging with, that's something we start to get concerned about. If there is a major shift in something that you know to be true about your student, then I would say reach out to us, reach out to your friends, your family members for support in how to offer support to your student. So yeah, I'll stop there.
Thank you so much, Sarah. So while this panel is about well-being and connection, and that's what we spent the bulk of our time talking about, we really understand that all of these things that we're talking about directly relate to your students' academic success, right? We know that if they have a sense of belonging, if their well-being is being focused on, if they have a connection to others, and they're healthy both physically and mentally, that they're going to do better academically. And so, Christina, I want to shift our conversation over to what strategies can students use to support their academic success during this time?
All right, thank you so much. So first off, attend office hours with instructors. I'm sorry, my son's in the background here, and my furnace is being repaired. So, all right. One of the biggest resources I want to share with you is GUTS, Greater University Tutoring Services. This is out of the Center for the First Year Experience, and GUTS has a 30-plus year history. It was a student group started to support other students in their academic endeavors. Check that out. It's guts.wisc.edu is the website. Attend office hours with instructors. These are held virtually. If your student doesn't know how to set up a time, have them check their syllabus and encourage them to reach out to their instructors directly. I know the instructors, as well as the faculty and staff, we miss connecting with students in person, and so we love it when students reach out to us to connect virtually. So highly encourage them to do that. In addition, have them reach out to their academic advisor. Their advisor is a central resource for students. They're not only there to assist during course enrollment time, they're a guide for your student throughout their time at UW, and they're committed to their academic success as well. We know that for some students, finding a place to study is a key strategy in supporting their academic success. Encourage your student to check out our directory of on-campus spaces for virtual learning, which includes drop-in and reservation-based spaces with reliable, high-speed internet. Your student can also find campus spaces, including libraries, Memorial Union, and Union South, that are available for general studying purposes, printing and computer lab access, and passing time between classes at www.covidresponse.wisc.edu. We'll be surveying our students later this month to assess their academic experiences, sense of belonging, and needs this past year. I hope your student will provide their input so we can continue to improve going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. And I want to thank all of the participants for sharing your time and your expertise and your insights. It's really been a joy to spend time with you today. And we really hope that the strategies for well-being and connection will be helpful to you or your students during these challenging times. Please know that me and all of our colleagues here and our colleagues at the university are really here to support you. We want to close with a final question for the group. So could each of you offer one sentiment or strategy or piece of advice that has helped you during this time? And we'll start with Caitlin.
So a piece of advice that I actually got when I started my career at UW-Madison that I have been reflecting on a lot and share with students is that they are not alone in this. We are not alone in this work. Practicing well-being, self-care, community care is not just for any one person. There are folks here who are dedicated to doing this work that can often be a really heavy lift together. So making sure that folks know that they can reach out and that others are just as invested in them. And that we are part of a community.
All right, so I'll go next. So, one of the biggest pieces of advice I would say is utilize your resources. That's the biggest thing. We are here for you. We are invested in your student success, in supporting your student here at UW-Madison, and reach out. I love hearing from parents. I love connecting with our students. And, our goal, and actually we just had great numbers released just this week around our graduation rates and our retention rates on campus. Students love to be here at UW-Madison. We are committed to this institution and we are committed to your student success. So please feel free to reach out and we are here for you.
That's me. I'm next. Those are great. Strategies and pieces of advice. I would say, I think maintaining perspective is really important. We are all living in sort of unprecedented times, and I think having a sense of humor about it and about some of the pitfalls and the things that go wrong is really important. And to Christina's point, we are a team at UW-Madison, and we, and I can speak for myself certainly, but I think everyone on this panel, we want to work with families and students to make sure that everybody is successful in this. And so I think it's really easy for people to get this sort of tunnel vision and fear about, failure and what's going to happen and everything's getting screwed up. And the reality is we're all okay. And the goal is to all get through this okay and safe and well. And mistakes are going to be made along the way. But as long as we're all communicating with each other and keeping in touch and having grace and patience with one another, I think that can go a long way in successfully getting to the other side of this.
That's me, right? Yes. Last and least, just kidding. So a couple of things come to mind. Journaling is one of the things that I am doing. Taking screen breaks and walking around the block has been really helpful. And one of the other things is that when folks ask how I'm doing, I no longer do the oh, I'm doing okay or I'm doing fine. I genuinely tell someone how I'm doing or a tidbit of what's going on for me. And folks have been able to connect in and relate about the frustration. So I'm no longer performing that everything's fine. And that has been a piece that has really, really helped me. And then staying hydrated, honestly. Staying hydrated.
Yeah, Warren is always really good at reminding us about that. So thank you all so much for that. And, just as a reminder, one of the things that when Warren was talking, it reminded me of this, and I'm over here chuckling, so it was good that I was probably on mute, is that Warren makes me laugh a lot in our meetings. And so I really think that, while we know that there are a lot of really serious and heavy things going on and it can be overwhelming, there are also things that are joyful. Find the time to laugh, to find those moments that are a little bit lighter, when something goes wonky on Zoom, when you have a kid running around, or other things are happening. Like, it's fine. Like, this is life. Like, that means we're alive and we're living, and that's okay. And it's okay to laugh. So and hydrate, like Warren said. I also have my bottle as well here too. So thank you again for joining us. We are so glad that you took the time to figure out some ways and strategies to help your students. And really, honestly, we hope that you found some ways to help yourself as a support system for other folks, because we also need to refill our cup, so that other folks can come to us. So thank you all so much. And on Wisconsin.
Okay.